Hello there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to the Heffy Doodle YouTube channel. In today's card making video, I am playing with this mini double slider to create a pop-up surprise in this woodland fall themed card. I am using this Dear to Me stamp set, the Nuts About You stamp set, and this cute Mole Lotta Love stamp set as well. I will be bringing in this mini double slider die set to create that pop-up surprise. And for my Slimline hill or ground, I'll use this border die set. All right, so on a piece of cardstock that is 8.5 by 4 inches, I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending with some Tattered Rose Distress Oxide ink. Today's card was inspired by the monthly challenge in the Heffy Doodle Facebook group. There is a great inspiration board, so if you haven't been to the Heffy Doodle website, Facebook page, you should go over and check that out because you can play along and make a card inspired by the inspiration board and possibly win a little gift certificate to the Heffy Doodle shop. So after I ink blended around the edges, I also spritzed this panel with water to get those fun water droplets and then did some splatter. Now on this 2-inch strip, I am going to cut that wavy border to create the ground, and I wanted to make this wide enough to hide my double slider, and so it probably ends up being just under 2 inches. Now on the ground, I'm going to use Candied Apple ink, and again, I'm just going around the edges and not covering the whole thing for more of a subtle look. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing, spritz it with water to get those yummy oxidized droplets of water, and then once that has set for just a minute, I pick up the excess water with a paper towel, and then I am going to do some more splattering with that same color of ink. I just have a scraggly like paintbrush that I like to use with a little water on it, and then I drag it across the edge of that window sheet to get the splatter. And I did let that set and dry, and then after a minute or so, I picked up the excess water with a paper towel. So here's all the images I'm stamping out from those 3 stamp sets to create my scene. I did double up on some of them, like the leaves, the mushrooms, and the trees. I love those birch trees. And now we're coloring in our images with Copic markers. My darkest image there was E39, and then I'm coming in with E35 and just kind of softening out that line of that dark shadow and extending the colored area, making it a little bigger with my mid-tone color. And then I'm bringing in E35 to do the same thing. I'm extending out the colored area, softening out that line that was just put down with my mid-tone marker. And here I decided I wanted a 4th marker, and so I brought in E31 as my lightest color, just to have a nice highlight on the back of the deer. I love this little deer laying down like that. It's so cute. I used E21 for the white parts of this deer, and then I moved on. I did end up going back and coloring in the nose, which I forgot. And now for the squirrels, I'm using E39 as my darkest color, and then E15 as my midtone. I'm just doing the same thing. I like to put down my shadow. Lately, I have been doing this where I start with the darkest color. I didn't used to do that, but I'm finding that I'm liking it more and more, especially on small images. I don't really feel the need to always saturate the paper, and so this is how I've been coloring lately, and I'm really enjoying it. Usually using about 3 colors for a blend, and it's working really good. All right, on to the mole. I'm using some warm grays, so W8 as my lightest or my darkest color for those shadows, and then you can see with the W6 I'm just softening out that harsh line of the dark shadow and then making the colored area a little bit bigger each time. And here I realized I totally forgot the right arm. There. So I added some more color to that, and then bringing in my lightest color, W2, and just really softening out the lines there, and he is darling. All right, for his muzzle, I'm going to call it a muzzle, and his hands, I used E4, And I also colored in his nose with gray. I just like the contrast there, but you could maybe even do that with a pink color as well. For the trees, I'm using W4, and then I'm going to soften out that line with the W2 marker, and that's it. Really simple coloring on the trees, but having that shadow makes all the difference. All right, on to the leaves. I'm using R27 as my darkest color, so I'm laying that down first. There are a total of 5 leaves, so the 3 bigger ones come with the squirrel stamp set, and that's about you, and then the teeny tiny leaves are with the deer stamp set. I'm going to use all of those, and I actually stamped them all out twice, so I could have 10 falling leaves on this card. On to the stump, which is one of my favorite images from that Dear to Me stamp set. I'm using E47 as my darkest color. With my E27, my mid-tone, I'm softening out that line and making the colored area a little bit bigger. And then my lightest color for the bottom of this trunk is E25, but I wanted the cut part to be even lighter, so I brought in a different marker to color that in, which is E55. And I love how that tree trunk turned out. I decided to use similar colors for my acorns, E55 for the top of that, and then on the bottom half I'm using E47 as my dark shadow, and then E27, and then just a little bit of that E25 to finish it off. And there you can see all the colored images and all the Copic markers I used. Any kind of repeat coloring I did not show. And now I'm going to die cut out all of these pieces with the coordinating dies using my mini die cut machine, which I just love this cute thing. I can fit right on my desk even when I have out all my stuff. I love that. Now you can see all the images. They are colored and cut out and so cute. I am taking that mini double slider largest piece, laying it where it's going to go on my card so I can kind of reference where to do the cutout for the pulling tab. Here are all the pieces you need to make this mini double slider. You also need a poop bag to make this. Yeah, they work the best, and so grab some. I think they even have them at the Dollar Tree. I cut a piece that's about 1 inch wide by 3.5 inches long to go around this middle section, and I'm using double stick tape to put the two ends together. When you wrap it around, you just want to be careful not to make it super tight. If it's tight, then it's not going to move around this mechanism, and that's the key to getting this to work. So make sure you don't wrap it too tight. All right, now I'm going to add on the pull tabs. I have 2, but you don't necessarily have to use 2. Here today, I'm going to attach the mole right to the double slider, but you might want to have 2 mechanisms that pop up. So when I pull this, the mole's going to pop up. But if you have something bigger, you attach the other mechanism to the back opposite of the way you attach the first one, and then you can attach something to one of the arms and that will pop up. So there's many different options there, and you just figure out what works best for your card. Now I used temporary adhesive to stick down this mole because I need to play with it and figure out where it's going to go, how far it's going to go down, and all the things. So I highly recommend this. It makes it so much easy to figure out where everything goes. So I'm going to now add some foam tape to the little tabs on the edge of this mechanism. Now this is the 3mm thick foam tape, and so it's really thick. You could probably get away with something a little less thick, especially because I end up putting it on both sides of this mechanism. So just some traditional thickness of foam tape would work good. But I just love the Heffy Doodle foam tape so much. So I'm going to just hold this behind and kind of play with it. And when I do, I realize that I kind of need the hill to swoop down right here instead of up, because no matter how high I place the mole up there, he just doesn't come up very far behind that hill, even though the mechanism works good in and of itself. So I brought back my little die and resituated it so I could cut it. I tried just cutting it off. That didn't look good. Just cutting off the one spot. So I ended up die cutting the whole thing again, and it worked really good. I was really pleased with it. But these little tabs on the edge now kind of showed. So I cut them off, and I was kind of worried how this was going to affect my slider, but I feel having the foam tape on the front and the back is going to make sure that bag doesn't like slide off of the mechanism itself. All right, so also my mole is being stuck down to the front of my slider. You could also stick it behind, and then the pull tab would be closest to the card. Either way, just play with it and see what works best for like the setup of your card. All right, so now I remove the double stick tape from the front, and I'm going to adhere that to the back of this panel here. And you can see he's just going to be kind of peeking out. And that's just like a little hint to the recipient of this card that there's something cool there. And there's also another hint with this little arrow piece. I saved the notch that I cut out of the distressed panel and glued that behind my arrow piece. So it's going to be white with a red arrow, and I think that's going to help it stick out so it'll be noticed, and then they'll know to pull on that and that something will happen. All right, so I went ahead and glued down those birch trees before adding in my ground piece here, which is popped up with double foam tape, because remember there's foam tape on the front and the back of my double slider. So I had to double up my foam tape. So now I just kind of laid out my critters where I thought they were going to go so I could stamp my sentiment that says, well, hello, dear. I just thought that was really fun. And then I'm going to adhere down all the things. I used 2 layers of foam tape to stick these on, so it's very dimensional, and then I added the leaves. But I felt the bottom of the card needed a little something, so I brought out this amazing tree die set, and I am going to die cut out all the leaves from that set. And when I do that, I like to have a really like inky background to do that from. So I did some ink smooshing, and then I like to do this in layers. So I've spritzed it with water, and I'm drying it at the same time to get some water droplets on there. This is just so much fun to do. And then when it's mostly dry, I pick up some of that ink that's all over my mat for another layer, and then I'll just keep doing this till I feel like I like it and it's done. And so I sprayed water, and I'm drying it, and I'm picking up the extras with my paper towel. Oh, it's so fun. You should definitely try it if you've not done this before. And then I wanted some darker splatter, so I went ahead and splattered it with that same ink. But then I brought in my, I think it's fired brick, or yeah, Distress Oxide spray, and pulled the nozzle out and flicked on some darker splatter there. And that dried super cool. And once the whole thing was completely dry, then I took out all the leaf dies from this die set and taped them in place, and I ended up die cutting all of them 2 times, and then I laid them across the bottom of my card where I thought I would want them to go, and I just used a jewel picker and my glue to glue these in place, just letting them lay there and picking them up as I went, and it worked out really good. And I like that they're really subtle on the card there, because it kind of makes it look like that's what's created this red ground piece here. So if you are short on inspiration or mojo, I recommend trying a challenge, which is what I did with this card. I thought I would play along with that challenge. So make sure you check out the Heffy Doodle Facebook page so you can play along with the challenge too. Plus, it's so fun to see your guys' creations over there, and we love that. So feel free to join us for that challenge over on the Facebook page. All right, so I glued this down to an 8.5 by 8 piece of cardstock that I scored at 4 inches. I needed it to be wider so I could fit the mechanism and all the things. And this will still fit into what we in America call a business sized envelope. So it works for me, but again, just play with what you have and make it work for your card design. I thank you so much for stopping by today and letting me share this card with you. I love interactive cards with little surprises in them, and I encourage you to give that a try yourself. I will see you all in the next video. Happy stamping! Bye!